Hello, everyone. I know it's been a while and I do apologize for that. But I've been a little busy, but I've been working on some things and I wanted to come on and show you a new tutorial, or at least just show you again my workflow when I'm working in Silhouette Studio. So again, my name is Tanya. I'm with All Things Dazzle. And welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you if you are a subscriber to my channel. I really appreciate all of the support. I read all of your comments and I try to respond to each of them. Thank you again for supporting my endeavors. And I hope that my videos help you uh, on your rhinestone journey. If you're not a subscriber, welcome to my channel. I hope that you will find the information that I share with you useful. Um, and if so, please be sure to like and subscribe. That will help me to continue to keep creating more content for you guys. So thank you. And with that, we'll get started. I am going to be working on a design for Black History Month. Um, and I'm going to go through the steps with you on how I bring the design into Silhouette Studio, perform a trace, as well as then create the vector graphic and then turn that graphic into a rhinestone template. Um, I'll start off by saying that I don't know how long this will take. I'm going to go through my process with you. So it could take longer than an hour. It could be as short as 30 minutes. I don't know. But in any event, I try to be thorough. And so I hope that you'll just follow along if you find the information useful to you. So with that being said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to share my screen with you. And again, like I said, I work primarily using Silhouette Studio. I have the business edition. And I've been using Silhouette Studio for the past 3.5 years or so. So while I'm not an expert, I do play around enough in it that I think I've gotten a pretty good handle on how to use the software. And so what I teach or what I show you in my videos is how I use the software. There may be other ways to use the software that I may not have yet learned, but I can only teach you what I have learned how to do. And so hopefully, again, you'll be able to follow along and use what I teach, or at least use what I show you to create designs of your own. So here's the design that I have. Again, it is a either a JPEG or design, as you can tell, because it has a white background behind it. And when the design is in this stage, we cannot turn this into a rhinestone design. We have to first turn it into a vector line graphic. And so in order to do that, I'm going to go over here to the right-hand side of my panel. I am using Silhouette version 5.0 something another. So it's the most latest version of Silhouette Studio. But again, I'm going to go over to my trace panel. I'm going to open up the trace panel, and the trace panel is on my interface, the 1, 2, 3, 4th icon down from the bottom. So when I click on that, it's going to open up this panel that says trace, and it is on the select by trace area as the default. The two trace functions that I use most frequently are the select trace area or the trace by color. But since this design does not have any color in it other than the black and the white, I'm going to go ahead and just do a select trace area. And in order to do that, I'm going to click it. And then I'm going to just take my cursor and I'm just going to put it in the uppermost corner here so that I can drag out a box around all of this image. Okay, so I'm just going to click and drag a box around the entire image. Okay. And once I've done that, I'm going to release my mouse. And once the system has finished performing the trace, the elements in the design turn yellow. Okay. And typically, when we do a select trace area, the default threshold percentage is 45. This typically will give you a pretty clean trace all on its own. However, if there were areas of the design that did not turn yellow that you need to turn yellow, you can adjust your threshold either up or down um, in order to get the trace to capture more of the design. But this one is good right now as it is. So I'm going to just go ahead and come down here under the Advanced tab and click the button that says Trace. Okay. So once I click Trace, the original image is sitting on top. And so we can just click on it and drag it off. And what we're left with is the trace of the image. Okay. I don't need this. I'm going to hold on to this image here so that I can refer back to it as we work on this image. But right now, as you can see, this image is very busy. Okay. And we have lots of outlines and such in this image. If I really wanted to see what it looked like, in the Rhinestone panel, I could click on the image, and then over here on the right-hand side of the screen, I'm going to open up the Rhinestone panel, and it's down here towards the bottom, again on the right, and it's the one that looks like a rhinestone. Okay, it's a circle, and when you hover over it, it says Open Rhinestone Panel. For me, it is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th icon from the bottom. But I'm going to click on it. Okay. And when that panel opens up, you have several different rhinestone effects that you can use. Okay. The very first one is no effect. Okay. It says none. The one next to that is our edge fill. Okay. The one next to that is the linear fill. Okay. And that's the one that will, well, I'll show you in a minute. And then the one next to that is radial fill. Okay. So what I like to do is, first off, is just kind of see what the design would look like if I use the edge fill effect. So I'm going to click on the edge fill. Okay. And, oh, wait a minute. Give me just a second. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. So I clicked on the edge fill, and right now the design is being rendered using stone size SS10s. Okay. That's what's highlighted. Okay. The spacing that is currently defaulted to is 0.039. That is the standard default for Silhouette Studio. I like to turn my spacing down. Okay. And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to click and just type in 0.020. Okay. So that's the spacing I like to start at. It just gives me a little bit more of a denser design, meaning that the holes are spaced a little closer together. So you get a few more stones in there. But it's not so closely spaced that when you go to cut your flop, you have issues with cutting. The closer you make your spacing, the tighter the space is between the holes. And sometimes when that space is too tight, um, cutting machines may have an issue with cutting that properly, so that when you remove the flock from your cutting mat, sometimes your flock will tear. So I try to leave, I try to make the design dense, but I also try to leave enough space in between. So 0.20 is kind of the sweet spot as a starting point for me. Okay, so I've turned that down to 0.0. 020. And as you can see, just, from what we have currently, I mean, you can see the outline because the font or the typography in this particular graphic was nice and thick and chunky. So you can kind of see what that looks like. If I turn the background of my media, this is what this is called, this mat here is called the media. If I go in here to the page setup icon, which is the very first one at the top, and I go in here and I give that some contrast, right? I'm going to go ahead and turn that black, okay, just so that you can see. And then I'm going to click on what we've turned on, and I'm going to just give it a color, and I'll turn it white so that you can see the contrast, okay? And by default, their line color around our circles is red. And I'm just going to go in here and to the line style panel. It's the third icon from the top, the one that is directly underneath your paint palette. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click the line. Excuse me, I'm going to click the line color icon, and I'm going to click this box under fill color. It's the very first icon. It's a open triangle, and that just turns off. Okay, that just turns off the red outline around your circles. Okay. Sometimes we have to go back and forth and do it multiple times, but that's how you do that. So just looking at this design, right, we can see it says Black History, Living History. It's hard to see the is, and it's kind of hard to see some of the other elements in the design with the SS10 rhinestone. So let's just see what it would look like if we use SS6. Oh, for some reason my spacing didn't change. So let me go back in here and change the spacing again. So 020, hit enter. Okay, so that looks a little bit better, and it also defines the design. You can see now Black History, Living History, a little bit more defined. You can also kind of somewhat see the upraised fists in the design. Okay, is still looking a little wonky. So let's just see what would happen if we turn it down and use SS6 rhinestones. So I'm going to come over here. I'm still in my rhinestone panel, and I'm going to click the 6SS. Okay, so that's going to make our holes a little bit smaller. Okay, and as you can see, when we make the holes smaller, the design gets more defined. You can see now the is starting to show up in the design. You can kind of see that the fists look a little bit better. Okay, so this tells me, or at least it just shows me, that this is a design that I can work with. Okay, I can use this particular design and turn it into a rhinestone template of my choosing. But I'm going to need to go in and I'm going to need to make some edits and some things and remove some elements from the design in order to make it look legible. Okay, so I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back to my page setup screen, and I'm going to turn the back of the media from black to another contrasting color, but something not so dark, hopefully so that you can continue to see what it is that I'm doing as I'm working in this design. So I'm going to go back to the rhinestone panel. Okay. And I'm going to turn the effect off. Okay. I'm going to turn off the rhinestone effect so that I can just see the design, okay, as it was. And I'm also going to, let's see. And I think I'm going to go back. Well, I'm going to leave it like this for now. We'll see what happens. Okay. So now that I have the effect turned off, okay, I'm going to click the design. Okay. And then I'm going to right click with my mouse. Okay. Anywhere, just going to put my cursor anywhere on the screen that's not where the graphic is. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to click release compound path. Okay. Let me do something. No, let me go back. So I'm going to go my undo. Okay. And before I do that, I'm going to turn off this white and I'm going to just make the fill color none. Okay. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn my line style and I'm going to turn the line color and I'm going to put the line color back. Okay. So I'm going to put the line color back. Let's see. Red might be hard to see against this gray. Yellow seems to be, I think you can see the yellow. Okay. Let me try to zoom in just a little bit. Okay. And hopefully you guys can see this. Okay. So now that I have the, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to click on the design and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click release compound path. Okay. So when I release the compound path, you will see that now everything that was associated with that design that is separate from anything else in the design currently has a box around it. Okay. And once the box is around it, that means that I can edit anything that is not attached to something else. Okay. So I'm going to just deselect everything. Okay. And I'm going to show you, we're going to start here at the top. One of the things, I need to kind of zoom out a little bit maybe. Okay. So if you click, you can start removing certain things. See, I got rid of this piece right here that was in the crown, but I want that. I want to keep that. Okay. So I'm going to start looking at the design to figure out what parts of the design I do not want. Okay. And as you can see, there's several offsets that are created in this design, but they're not necessarily offsets. They're the stroke in this design, the very thick parts of the black right here. Okay. So I'm going to go and I'm going to try to click this most outer one. Okay. The most outer one. And I'm going to, nope, that's not it. This is the part that can be just a little tedious. Okay. I think that's it. I'm going to drag that out. Okay. Well, actually, let me try something else. Let me see something else. I know that I want the inside parts of the letters. Okay, so I know I want the Black history, living history. So I'm going to try to click on those. Okay, so I've clicked on the B and I'm going to hold my shift key. And while I hold my shift key, I'm going to click the other letters. I'm going to try to click on the other letters. So I'm holding the shift key. I have the B selected. I'm going to click on the L. I'm going to click on the A, and I need to make sure that I click the other part of the A, because remember, once we release the compound path, all of the pieces that weren't attached to something got released. So I need to make sure I click that. I'm going to click this C, and I'm going to click the K. Okay, so I've clicked the interior parts, and to make sure that I have selected those things, I'm just going to give them a color so that I can see them. I'm going to go ahead and turn them, go to my paint palette, and I'm going to fill them in with color. So I'm going to just go ahead and fill this top one in and color it all yellow. Okay. And and then I'm going to right click. Okay. I'm going to right click anywhere. I'm just going to click, right click, and I'm going to make that a compound path. Okay, so when I make that a compound path, as you can see, it filled in the A, but it didn't fill in the B, and that's probably because I forgot to select those parts of the design. So let me go back and let me do it again. I'm going to hold shift. Okay, everything else that I had selected is still selected, but I'm going to go ahead and click these little inner parts. Okay, that parts of the B that I forgot to select, like I did when I did the A. Okay, so now that I have those things selected, I'm going to color them yellow, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to click make compound path. Okay, so now I have the black. Okay, so now I'm going to go in, I'm going to do the same thing with history. Okay, same exact thing. I'm going to click on the H. I'm going to hold down my shift key. I'm going to click the I. the S, the T, the O, and I'm going to make sure to grab the bigger part of this O, okay, because that's what I want. I want the big part of the O. I'm going to click the R, and I'm going to click the inside piece here, and then we're going to click the Y, okay? So we got all of that selected. I can right-click now and make compound path, okay? And then I can select the color. So let's go ahead and just turn that one red, okay? So we see that we've got all of black, we've got all of history. Let's go ahead and do is. Okay, but with the is, I want to keep these stars, okay, because they're pretty, I'm going to keep the stars. So I'm going to click on the star. I'm going to click on the I. I'm going to click on the S, and I'm going to click on the other star. And I'm going to go ahead and make that a compound path. And I'm just going to turn it white. Okay. I'm going to keep going. So we're doing the L, holding the shift key. I'm going to click on the I. Okay, making sure that I get that top part. I'm going to click on the V, but I can already see that part of the V is attached to something else, but I'll go ahead and click it. You see what happened when I clicked the V? You see how the V, when I clicked on it, it opened up a bigger box, okay? And that's because the V, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in just a little bit so you can see it. That is because this V right here in this space right in here is open. Okay, so that means that this part is attached to something else. And because it is attached to something else, we cannot individually select it like we did the other letters. So I'm going to zoom back out a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and select the other letters and not the V. We'll come back to the V. Okay, so I'm going to collect the L, the I, and again, I'm holding my shift key when I do this. I'm going to collect the other I, the N, and the G. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Again, I'm going to right click and click make compound path. And I'm going to go ahead and just turn that green. Okay. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do the other history. Okay. So I'm going to click the H, holding my shift key. I'm going to click the I, the S, the T, the O. I'm going to grab the big inside part of the O. I'm going to click the R and grab this piece, and then I'm going to select the Y. I'm going to right click. I'm going to click make compound path, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it a color. Let's just go ahead and turn it orange for now. Okay, so we have Black history is living history. Okay, with all, as you can see, it's starting to come together. Okay. Now the V, I'm going to scroll over just a little bit, and I'm going to click on the V, and I'm going to see what the V is attached to. Okay, so the V, let's bring this out for a minute, and I'm going to turn this outline into another color so you can see it. Okay, so this V was attached to all of this. Okay, so I just want the V, right? I only want the V. So I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn this black. Let's see, I'm going to give it a color, and I'm going to fill it in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to fill that in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife tool, okay, because I want to slice this part, or I can use the eraser tool. So let's do the eraser tool. So the eraser tool is over here on your left-hand side of the screen, and it is the third icon from the bottom, okay? Kind of just looks like, I mean, it looks like an eraser, but when you hover over it, it says eraser tool. So I'm going to click on that. And when I click on it, up here at the top, of my screen, okay? But below the main toolbar, you can see it says solid outline. There's a little box, this whole size, and these dimensions. So if I slide this slider wheel, okay, it makes the eraser tool larger, okay? So that's too big. So I'm going to scale it down a little bit, okay? Because I don't want to remove the parts that I don't need. So you could do this. You might have to do this multiple times. Well, let's see if we make it a little bit larger. If I come in here and I do this and I put this eraser tool right here and I click, okay, you see how it kind of got rid of some of that, but it didn't quite disconnect it from the other part of the graphic that it was attached to. So we still have to get rid of that. So if we wanted to, so that showed you how you use the eraser tool. Let me show you now how you can use the knife tool to achieve the same thing. Okay, we could continue to use the eraser tool and keep erasing the parts of this that we want. But I'm going to show you how you use the knife tool. So the knife tool is the one that's directly below the eraser tool. So if I click on the knife tool, okay, again, it opens up that same little toolbar underneath the main one. And I am going to, I want to do a straight cut. Okay, so when my mat, excuse me, when my cursor is on the screen, okay, or in the mat, you see how my cursor changed from a pointer tool to a little knife tool. Okay, so if I take that knife, okay, and I just click and draw a line, as you can see, hopefully you can see there's a faint line there, but wherever I make that that slice, that's where the knife is going to cut. Okay, so I like do that and click apply. Now my V has been cut away from the part of the design that I don't want. Okay, so this needs a little bit of cleanup though. Okay, and there are several ways that you can kind of, clean this up. The most simplest way to do it is to come over here to your drawing tools, and I'm going to draw out a little rectangle. Okay, so I'm going to click on the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to draw out a rectangle. Okay, and you don't have to color it. Okay, you just need to take it, and it doesn't matter as you want to size it so that it's larger, I want to cut away, what I'm trying to do, sorry, what I'm trying to do is to even out this top part of the V, okay? So I'm just going to take my box, okay, and I'm going to rotate it, okay? And how you can rotate it is with this little green dot right here. When I hover over it, okay, it allows me to then rotate this. So I'm going to rotate that and I'm going to put it like right there on the edge of the pieces that I kind of want cut off from the design. Okay. I want to slice this off and give this a nice straight edge. Okay. Can you guys see that? Okay. If I turn the box into a color, so I go to the paint palette here so you can see. Okay. So with this, over this part of that you can see how much of that we're going to get rid of. Okay. So if I click on the V, okay, and I hold my shift key and then I click on my box. Okay. Now both of those things are selected. Over here on the right hand, right hand side of the screen, I'm going to click on the transform. Excuse me, I'm going to click on the modify panel. Okay. And the modify panel is this one over here with the rectangle and the circle. Okay. So I'm going to click on that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click subtract. Okay. Because I want to subtract this part of the V from what's being covered by this box. So when I click subtract, Okay, it doesn't look like it did anything, but when you take the box away, you can see that all we're left with is the parts of the V that we wanted to keep. Okay, so that's what I wanted. So I'm gonna zoom back out a little bit. Okay, we don't need this little box anymore. Well, we might need it for something else. I'll just stick it off here to the side. Okay, and we don't need I don't need this part of the design anymore either. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete that. Okay. And I can go ahead and color my V. I'm going to go ahead and color it green. And I'm just going to turn the outline off. Okay. And I'm going to just bring it back over here where it belongs. I'm going to line it up over that S, just like the other one was. Let me zoom in a little so you can see. Okay. So see, here's our V. And I'm going to go ahead and group it with the rest of the word living. So I'm going to click on living and I'm going to hold the V and I'm going to right click with my mouse and I'm going to go ahead and, I'll go ahead and make it a compound path. Okay, so now it is attached to the rest of the word. And I'll go ahead and hit my undo key so that we can put that back into place. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to everyone. I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to start looking again at the parts of the design again that I don't need. Okay. So I know I want to keep, I'm probably going to get rid of all of the other elements in this design. Okay. If it were you and you wanted to keep the star, you can keep the star. But I'm going to just get, for simplicity's sake, for this particular tutorial, I'm going to get rid of the parts of the elements of the design that I don't want. So I don't want the star, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those, get rid of that. Okay. Get rid of this. Okay. Let's see. Get rid of this. Now this star is attached to another part of this outline, but I don't want it either. So I can go ahead and delete that. Delete that star. I'm actually going to delete that offset because I don't need that. I don't want these parts of the chain. I do want to keep this part of the fist, but as you can see, part of this, well, let me go back. Let's just keep deleting the parts that we don't need. It's tedious, but sometimes I was going to do it a different way, but I'll just do it this way. So I'm just deleting the little pieces of the design that I don't want. Up and go back, hit my undo key. Okay, the undo key is up here in the top in the black. This one over here is undo. The one facing to the right is redo. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to keep deleting. Sorry. The parts that I don't want. Okay. I could have kind of grouped some of this and moved it out of the way and put it back and so forth and so on. But sometimes it's good to see the process. And once you get proficient to do it on your own, you can do it however you like. Okay. So I'm still just deleting the parts of the design that I don't want. I don't want any of this. Okay. I don't want that. I'm not going to do the chains because the chains are so close together. And when we looked at it earlier, when it was in the under the rhinestone panel, it was very difficult to see it, even in the SS6 stone. See, they just don't look good. So I'm just not going to keep that part of the design. Okay. So I'm going to, like I said, get rid of the chain. Okay. So I'm just going in here and I'm getting rid of those pieces. Okay. I do want to keep the fist. Okay, and sometimes they're little tiny pieces that were associated as part of the trace. So you have to you have to look and see. But this I think has parts of it, like the inside piece here. I'm going to show you, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Because this is open, right? There's nothing attaching to close off this part of the fist. These inside pieces that kind of show the closed fist, see, they're separate. So I could actually, and you can tell that they're separate because a box can go around them. Okay, but this part, this outline piece part, see, it's this is this. So I got to make sure. So I'm going to put that back, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of those pieces in the fist, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure to either group them all together or make them a compound path. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and make it a compound path. Okay. So now all of my fist is together, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to continue to keep deleting the parts of the design that I don't want. Okay. I don't want this piece right here and this part of the chain. Okay, and this part of the fist over here is the same as the other. This piece is a box by is separate, and this piece is separate along with this, but the rest of it is all connected because it is open. Okay, there's no it's not closed off. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to try to drag a box and make sure that we select all of the parts, right click, and make a compound path. And to make sure that we got everything, we can move it. It all moves together. And then I'll just use my undo key to put it back in the spot that it was in. Okay. So we're going to go over here. We're going to continue to delete the pieces of the design we don't want. So we've got this up here, and we've got this bottom part of the crown. Okay. But because it's not connected, and I'm going to just go ahead and delete it. Okay. Because we have the piece above it. We have this part of the crown, we have this, and we have this. Okay. I am going to delete this part. Okay. And the two circles that go with it. And I think I'm just going to leave that part. And then I'll put this back into place. Okay. And then I'm going to kind of open that up just a little bit. Try to open that up just a little bit. And then I'm going to, I don't like how that changed the angle a little bit. So I'm going to put it back, and we'll deal with that when we're done. So I'm going to, holding my shift key while that piece is selected, I'm going to select all of the rest of the piece of the crown. Okay. So the diamond and all of the little circles here. Okay. I'm going to right click. I'm going to make that a compound path, and then I'm going to give it a color, and we'll just color it white. Okay. So I'm going to zoom back out so that you guys can see what we're left with. Up. Let's see, we got still some parts down here that we don't want. Okay. So I'm going to give a little bit of space in here so that I can give those rhinestones some room to fit. But I'll show you. So now we have, this is what we're left with. Okay. So we're left with Black history is living history. We have the crown, we have our is with the stars, and we have our two fists. So now let's see what it looks like. Okay. So here was the original design, and here's what we have left over. Let's draw a box or drag a box around the entire design. And let's just see what happens when we go back to the rhinestone panel and we turn on the edge fill using SS6 rhinestones and see what it looks like. Okay, let's go ahead and I'm gonna turn that contrast and make that black so you can see. All right, so this is what we're left with. This actually looks a whole lot better than what we had when we started. Okay, I'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, our fists need a little bit of work. Okay, and let's see what let's see. Um, let me go back and turn that, whoop, and turn that gray, back to gray. And let's see what size this is. This is sized, this right now, this design is 10.784 inches in width, okay, and 10.830 inches in height. Okay, so if I were going to put this on a shirt, okay, right now, it's a little large for a small, okay, but it's the perfect size for a large, extra large, or even a 2XL. Okay, so let's try to. I'm going to make the design just a little bit smaller. Okay, I typically like to land at about the 10.5 inch mark, anywhere between 10 and 10.5 inches. And let's just see if we make it a little longer. So I'm going to use my scale and I'm going to drag from this middle square right here and just going to drag it out and just make it a little bit longer. And see, that's at 11.5. So that's 11.5 inches by 10.5 inches. Okay. So I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna turn off my line color just to kind of give it a more clean look. And I'm just gonna turn the contrast back to black so that you can see it better and what that's shaping up like. So here's our design. And what happened to the fist? So let's go back. When we turn the line color off, because we hadn't given the fist a color, we lost them. So let me go back in here and just give them a color so you can see it. Okay, so here's what our design is looking like. And this is actually turning out, this is looking pretty decent. Okay, let's go ahead and I'm gonna, again, give it a little bit more contrast so you can see it. And again, this is in SS6 rhinestones. Okay, and let's see what happens if we use SS10 or 10SS size stones. Okay. All right, we still have good detail. Okay. So SS10 rhinestones are typically the more preferred size rhinestone. So we may stick with SS10 for this tutorial. Or I might do, I don't know, I'm loving the SS6, but we'll go with SS10 for the purpose of this tutorial, okay? And this is looking pretty good. We still need to do some cleanup, okay? So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna turn the effect off so that I can look at the original graphic. But remember right now, excuse me, right now, let's see, matter of fact, let's just see. So when we're looking at it in the edge fill, let's see what happens if we look at it in the linear fill. Okay, so I'm gonna just select the whole thing and see what the linear fill pattern looks like. Okay, well, that makes it a little hard to read in SS10 rhinestones. Let's see if it looks any better if we choose SS6. Okay, that looks a little bit better, but it's still kind of hard to read. Okay, and then the other effect would be our radial fill. Okay, and the radial fill is the one that kind of preserves the curves, like in the B's and the C, okay? But because it's putting the circles on a curve, in the spaces where the stones don't fit, you wind up having these gaps, okay? So you can fix that with some editing, okay? But this is what it would look like just without any other edits to it. So I think for this tutorial, I'm just going to use the edge fill, okay, because it gives us the most cleanest version of the design with the minimal amount of editing, okay? And so now that I can see what this looks like, I'm going to turn the effect off so that I can look at just the letters, okay? And I'm going to create a little bit of spacing. So I'm going to ungroup this black, okay? So I'm going to release the compound path, and I'm actually going to drag a box over the B and make it a compound path by itself, not attached um, to the rest of the letters. And then I'm gonna do the same with the A. I'm just gonna drag and select the box, making sure to grab that interior piece and then right click and make a compound path. Okay, so now each of my letters, as you can see, I can click on each of them individually. And I'm just I'm gonna space the B out a little bit, and I'm gonna space the K over a little bit, and just going to give a little bit of room to these letters, okay? And then I'm going to highlight them all. So I'm gonna hold the Shift key, okay? And then I'm going to turn on the rhinestone edge fill effect so that I can start making my edits, okay? And see what I may need to make changes to. So I want to make sure that my stones are not overlapping, okay? So this B and this L is still a little too close together. So I can click on the B and move it over, okay? I can click on the L and move it over because over here I'm overlapping a little with the A. I can raise this up just a little bit, okay? So now the A and the L are no longer touching, okay? The C and the A, I'm gonna move this K over just so that I can move this C over a little bit so that I give a little bit of space in between those stones so we have some room. So that looks pretty good, okay? So now let's see what happens when we do history, okay? Now history, I made a compound path at the very beginning, so I'm going to release it, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did before, which was to grab the O and the interior piece and make it a compound path by itself. And then I'm going to do the same and grab the R along with that inside piece and make that a compound path. And now we can select all of it together. Well, we can now, yes, we can select all of the letters. I'm holding the Shift key while I do this. And I'm going to go back to the rhinestone panel and turn on the edge effect. Okay. And looking at that, we can see that we need to create some spacing. Let's move this H out a little bit. Let's move the I. We might need to make the I just a little bit more narrow. So we can drag this in a little bit so we can take our scale and scale it in just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to move the Y over here on the other end. Okay. Because we have enough space. And then I'm going to move the R, leaving enough room. I'm going to move the O. And it's still kind of touching a little bit. So I'm going to scale it in just a little bit. Okay. I got my T. I'm going to move it up and over just a little bit. And then let's see if I scale it in just a little. I can do that. I can scale it in just a little bit. Maybe bring it down a little. so I could fill in that space right there where there was a missing stone. And then we have the S, and I'm gonna just kind of squeeze it in just a little bit. And so now that all fits. So I like the way that looks. Okay, so now we have is. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like when we turn on the edge fill. Okay. I am going to see, let's see, probably needs to, oh, wait a minute. Let me go back because we're on SS6 and I said I wanted to do SS10s. So let me go back and I'm going to change that to sixes, excuse me, I'm going to change that to tens and then see if we need to make any other edits. Okay. And we do. Okay, because they're touching. Okay, and so I think instead of spacing it out a little bit more, we'll scale, we'll just scale in the letters. Okay, so I'll click on the B and I'm gonna kind of squeeze it in just a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna do the same with the L, squeeze it in. The A, let's see, squeeze in the A, the C, squeeze that in a little bit, and then we have our K, and I just moved that in just a little bit, and there we go. Okay, so now let's go back to history, and let's turn it into SS10s and see what changes we need to make there. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll just start scaling in some more of the letters to give them a little bit more room to fit. And then the Y. Okay. So now we're back at the is, and we'll turn it into tens. Okay. And this is in such a little bit of a space, but I'm going to try to scale that out. See, as I scale it out, it needs a lot more space than what it currently has in order for it to look good in SS10 rhinestones. Okay, so let's just kind of let's take a look here and see what we got going on. Okay, maybe what we'll do is we'll make this design a little bit longer, or let's see what happens if I make these a little bit more narrow, right? So I group the whole thing here, and I'm just playing with the sizing, and you can do this because we haven't released the rhinestones yet. So you can see what all of your changes and such look like as you make them with the rhinestone effect turned on. Okay, so let's see what happens. I just want to kind of if I do this, and let's see, I want to give enough space so that we can fit is in there and also let it be SS10 rhinestones, okay, along with everything else. Okay, I think that might have done it. Let's just see. I'm going to ungroup this, or I'm going to release the compound path, and I'm going to space that out a little bit. And I don't like this star. We may do something different with these star. Maybe I choose a different star. I'm going to take that out to the side for the moment because I don't quite like that. But this is pretty good. It's legible. I scale it in a little bit. I think that makes it just a little bit easier to read. So we have our Black history is, okay. So let's do living. Oh, I moved that. Do the undo. Okay, let's see what living looks like. So we turn on our edge fill. Okay, we're still in SS10 rhinestone, so that's good. I'm going to zoom in so that you can see. And let's see where we need to start making some changes. So I'm going to ungroup it. Well, I'm going to release the compound path, excuse me, and release the compound path. And I'm going to start making some spacing. So I'm going to space this G over and maybe space this L over a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that my eyes are connected, but I'm going to raise that up a little bit. Okay. So that those stones are not sitting right on top of the other ones. But then I'm going to hold my shift key while it's selected and click the bottom part of the eye. And I'm going to group those two things together. And then I'm going to move that out of the way. And let's move this in. See how much. I think we can move this G just a little bit more. And now we can go work on this I. I'm going to raise that up. I might shrink that in. No. I'm going to do undo. I have my I and group that together. Move that over a little bit and my V. Okay, so now this off looks good. I'm still struggling with this is, as you can see. If I make it a little bit wider, group that together for a minute, make it a little bit wider. Okay. Trying to see at what point. Okay, I think that's about where we need to be. So we've got our living spaced out. I'm gonna raise it up just a little bit. And then we have history here at the bottom. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to release my compound path. And then I'm going to just drag a box around the O. Okay, so I'm just coming below it and making sure to grab that interior part of the O. You can see it because a box got selected around it. I'm going to right click and make compound path. And I'm going to do the same thing for the R and make it a compound path. Then I'm going to select all of those letters and turn on the edge fill and then do a little bit of spacing. Start moving that over there, move maybe the Y a little bit over there. Let's move in this R, our O, our I. I'm gonna scale him in a little bit. Scale in this S. We're gonna scale in this T. Scale in the O. Make some adjustments. Do this. Okay, so there we have it. Okay, so now we've got Black history is living history. I'm going to zoom out so you can see it. It looks really clean. Okay, so now we have left to work with is our crown and our fists. Okay, so let's start with the crown. Okay, so I selected it and I'm going to turn on the edge fill and see what that looks like. Okay, so with our crown, we're SS10 rhinestones. Let's see what happens if we kind of scale it out a little bit. See if we can get those stones to kind of even out just a little bit. Okay, so that's what it looks like in the edge fill. But let's just see sometimes if we click the linear fill, sometimes that will make the lines go a little bit differently. So let's just see what that looks like. That's not going to work. So we'll have to go back to the edge fill and we'll have to do some manual cleaning up of this part of the design. when we go to release the rhinestones, okay? I can make it a little taller, and that helps a little bit. But remember, if I make it taller, it also makes the design longer, okay? So depending on what you want your width to be for your shirt is going to determine how far we're going to scale that out. If I drag a box around the whole thing right now, just to kind of see where we are, it's telling me this design is at 12.122 inches in height. Okay, so that's going to take up a full shirt, and I think I want it to be less than that. But I remember now that we did shrink the Black history, but we didn't shrink the living history. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab that part of the text and I'm going to just kind of shrink it up a little bit. Okay. So that it is about the same size in relation to the top. Okay. Let's move that out of the way. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, I don't have it all. Let's see. I'm going to move my fist out of the way for a minute because I want to select Black, and I'm going to group that together. Just make sure I grab it all. And then I'm going to select all of history, and I'm going to group that together so that, and let's see. First of all, let me do something else. I'm going to go ahead and center this whole design. So I got Black, history is living, and group it all together. And then history here at the bottom. And this crown. So now each of these things, I select all of those. I'm going to come over here to my transform panel, and that's where my alignment tools are. So I'm over here on the right side of my screen. I'm going to open up the transform panel, and I'm going to use my center horizontal, or I'm just going to center everything horizontally. Okay, so here's horizontal, and here's center here in the middle. So we're going to make sure that everything lines up centered. Okay, but when we do that, we can see that some of our shifting of our design kind of is off because of the way the text was. The text necessarily wasn't centered there. So I'm going to go back and do undo. Okay, because that's not exactly how the design is. But what I will do is just make sure that the crown and is centered. Okay, so that the crown and the is are centered, and then I will select Black and history, group those two things together. And then I'm going to group living and history, and I'm going to group those two things together. And then now I'm going to make sure that everything is centered properly. Okay. So now that we have that, and living history is still slightly larger, I think, than Black history. Okay. Yeah. All right. So now everything is centered. I'm going to scale this crown back down because it's now kind of too tall for what we have. And we're just going to I'm going to make some manual edits. Okay. It's good practice to be in here. All right. So we have that. And then we had the stars. So we had these stars. Okay. Now this one is good, but this one is kind of crappy. Okay. So if I shrink this in, just want to shrink this in and see how much detail of the star that I lose. Okay, that still looks like a star, I think, but not as good as it did when it was slightly larger. Okay, can we get it to fit in there like that? We could angle it. We could kind of do one of those. And if I duplicate it, so what I did was I highlighted, I clicked on it, and then I right clicked with my mouse and I clicked duplicate, okay, and made a second one. I can do that, okay, but I think they're too big. I think they're too big. So I'm going to take that out and I'm going to come over here to my drawing tools, okay, and I'm going to come over here to my flexi shapes, excuse me. So over here on the left-hand side of the toolbar, in this icon that is the one below your draw um, rectangle, your drawing tools, you have your flexi shape tools. Okay. And so I'm gonna go in there and I'm going to click and find the star. So here's a star, and I'm going to just draw me out a star. Okay. So I'm gonna draw a star, and then I'm going to use the flexi tools to kind of change how that star looks. Okay. So when I grab this little red dot here in the middle, it makes my star less more narrow. Okay, so now I have more of a 5-point star. And if I turn on the edge fill or the rhinestone for that, okay, we can see that it looks like a star. And I have a little bit more control when I shrink it down a little bit, you know. Let's just see. Let's give it a color and see if that, eh, I'm not quite liking that either. It needs more space. We need more space. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Let's move this down. And now we can do this. And let's go back to our other star that we did like. This one. And I'm going to change that rotation. And we can put that back. And we can duplicate that one and just put it on the other side. And let's just make sure that everything is lined up. So I'm going to go over here again to the transform panel, and I'm going to align everything vertically. Okay, so it's all lined up. We've got our stars back in there. So the only thing we have left to work on is our crown. So I'm going to ungroup this. And I can play around with this some more. I know you said, Tanya, you just centered everything and now you're messing up. Um, and I do that sometimes. Oh, I'm just scaling this out. So this is still connected. I can go ahead and connect these two again just to group them. They're already connected. So I can line everything back up again. I mean, now that I put my stars in here, let me group that together. So, uh-oh. So we're going to drag a box and then we're going to just check our alignment. Okay, so everything is centered back aligned. Now we have, so we have the crown left to work on. Oh, wait a minute. I seeing what I was doing right here. My history, my S is supposed to be fitting up underneath this V. That's where that curve is. And my G kind of sits down here in this Y. So we got to put that back. Okay, so now that we got those things back in place, okay, we have to work on the fists. So we have one that was over here like this and one that was over here like that. Okay. Let me look at the original design for a minute. We don't need that. Okay, let's look at something a minute. Here's our design. I'm just going to use this as an overlay for right the minute. Okay. So this one was kind of down here like this, and this one was like that. And I'm going to do something else. Like I said, again, sometimes these tutorials, again, this is my workflow. This is how I go about designing my templates. Okay. I play around with my design. Okay. Let's see. I want to see what that width looks like. So we are at 10.814 inches in width. I'm going to take this off. I want to see how far I can get this down, how narrow I can make this. Because again, my goal is to make sure that this still ends up on a shirt that can be worn by most people. While still using SS10 rhinestones. And to be honest, this is really needing SS6 stones, but we're gonna try to make it work. We're gonna try and make it work because I believe in giving people what they want. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna drag a box again. I'm just checking my widths. Okay, so I'm at 10.013 inches in width. So that gives me some wiggle room, and that's good. So I'm gonna move this over like that. And we were at 9.846 inches in height. So we have some room there. So I can drag that out a little bit. I can make that a little bit taller. Make that a little bit longer. Okay. All right. I think I might be happy with this. I still got to come in here. I think I'm going to come in here and do a little bit of playing around with the is, but but for now, I'm okay. So now what I want to do is, before I work on this crown, I want to put an offset around this design. Okay. So I'm going to turn these hands into a different color because I'm going to turn this black contrast off. So, but I want you to still be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to turn those purple for the moment. And I'm going to turn off this gray and it's going to make this white. And we'll just go ahead and give this a color so you can still see it. Okay. And I'm going to turn off the rhinestone effect. Okay. I'm just going to turn it off. Okay. And as this stands right now, like I said, if you wanted to create your own SVG or PNG of this design simplified, you now have it, right? Like this can be saved. If you have the business edition of Silhouette, you can save this as a SVG, or you can save it as a PNG, okay, for a digital download design. Okay, we could have done that before as well. Before we removed all the other pieces of the element, we could have added some color to those things. But that's for a whole nother tutorial for another day, folks. So anyway, right now, like I said, I want to take this design and I want to add an offset. Okay, so I'm gonna again click anywhere and draw a box around all of the design. Okay, I'm going to come over here on the right and I'm going to open up the offset panel. It's the one over here that looks like a double star. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to click on offset. Okay, so now I know that when I'm working with rhinestones, that I need at least a clearance in my offset distance from my stones of the size stone that I'm working on. So if I'm working with SS10 rhinestones and the silhouette default for an SS10 stone is 0.13 or 0.130, I know that my distance for my offset needs to be at least 0.130. I tend to make it just a little bit higher than that. So right now, I was working on a different design, so it kept the offset that I was working on, but I'm going to just come in here and I'm going to change this offset. And I'm going to just make my offset 0.145. Okay. And I'm going to say apply. And I do want to make sure that parts of the offset are touching. Okay. And they are, although it's not touching right here. And so I might need to make it just a little bit larger than that because I want, let's see, so I'm going to make it a little larger. Okay, so now it's all touching in most places. And I'm going to click apply. Okay, and then when I click apply, we can see it didn't touch here. And it didn't touch in some other places. So I'm going to go back and let's see what I want to do. Well, let's see what it looks like. Let's see what it looks like first. So I'm going to turn on the edge fill. Okay. And this is what the design would look like if I turn these stones, and I'm just going to make them a color so you can see it. And then I'll just turn this contrast back on. Okay. And then these things were white. Oh, excuse me. Okay. But but I don't want to clean up all of these stars on the inside part of the is. So what I'm going to do is I need to make the offset. I either need to make the text a little larger or I make the offset a little larger. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to do an undo. Okay, and I'm just going to undo it all the way back to before I created the offset. And I'm going to, again, draw a box around it. Go back to the offset panel, click on offset, and I'm going to make it a little bit larger. Okay. That might be too large for what I want. So I'll make it a little smaller. And Let's just see, click apply. Okay, it still gave me this offset around the word is. Let's see something because I don't have that. Oops, sorry. I had this design. I'm trying to go where I had it originally. Oh, I did. Okay. So let's turn on the edge fill of this design and turn on the punch. Turn this page black. I'm going to turn those stones white so I can see it. And now I'm going to just go back and see what the design looks like with this offset around it. And we still hadn't done the crown yet. So we're going to work on the crown. Let's turn this, let's see, I'm going to turn this gray for a minute. I don't like that gray. Just something a little darker, but not so dark. Because I think what I want to do is I want these stones on this offset to be a dark color stone. So I'm going to turn those, not necessarily black, but maybe a dark gray, but maybe I have to turn them black because of the thing. And turn off the line color. Okay. Okay, that's kind of like a dark gray. And let's see what happens if okay, so now we can see that. Okay, so I think I like that. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit just so that you guys can see what my offset is looking like around my design. I think I like it. Okay, and so now let's see. So the last, we have the crown and we have the inside parts of the hand. So let's see what happens when I turn on the edge fill. Okay, so that's the edge fill. Let's see what happens if I turn on the linear fill. The linear fill gave me nice straight, cleaner lines inside here for the fist. It looks a lot more legible than it did with the edge fill. So I like that. I'm just going to go ahead and turn it a different color. Let's go ahead and just turn it white. And let's do the other one. Yep. And turn it white. So the only thing we have left to work on is the crown. Okay, but I hope that you guys look how well this design has turned out. We've done this in SS10 rhinestones. Okay, let's just see what happens if we just select the whole thing. And let's just see what it looks like if we use SS6 rhinestones. And because we have not yet released the rhinestones, this is why we can alternate between the SS6 and the SS10 so easily. But I'm going to click on the sixes. And as you can see, that just gives the design a much more defined look. Okay. I don't necessarily think that it's going to change how it looks filled in, but we can just we can try it. We can just click on a portion of it and use the radial fill and see what that looks like. Oh, that doesn't look too bad in SS6s. We'd have to do some cleanup. Um, and so, you know, if you decide that you want to have a more filled in look to the design, you can go with your SS6 stones and do some manual editing. This is the linear fill. And again, we're using SS6 stones just to see what that looks like. Not horrible, but I think I still, for the simplicity's sake, I'm going to stick with the outline fill for this design. And let's go in here and let's work on this crown. Let's see. Now, this crown in the linear fill, we might could use that. I might could just come in here and add some rows of stones just to fill up this space. But let me just see again what it looks like in the edge fill. The edge fill makes it look more like a crown. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can get really up close. And I'm going to go back to the no effect for that part of the crown. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to release the compound path. Right. So I've clicked on it. I'm going to release the compound path. One of the things I know I need to do is I need to make these circles just a little bit bigger. Okay. So I'm just going to scale them up a little bit. Okay. And then turn on the rhinestone effect and just see what that looks like and see how big I can make that. Okay. To stay within the confines of the offset that I've already created, because I don't want to create another offset, but I want to see if I can just if I can make this circle look a little bit more defined. And that seems to work. And do I need to do it for all of them? No, I can just delete the ones that I don't want. And I can just copy and paste another one here. That's one way to do it. Okay, so you could copy paste. You can, while it's selected, you can right click and do duplicate. Okay, we've done that before. Making sure to grab the one that we just duplicated and add that in there. There's another way, and I'm just centering that in between the offset, trying to make it centered. Another way to create a duplicate of something is you can put your cursor on the item or on the thing that you're wanting to make a copy of. And if you hold your Alt key, the Alt key on your keyboard, you'll see that my finger right now looks like a finger. When I press the Alt key, it turns into a plus sign. Guys see that? It turns into a plus sign, and you can click with your mouse and just drag out that shape. Okay. So that's another way to quickly make duplicates of something when you're working on the manual editing portion of your design. Okay. So I have those. Okay. And because, again, we haven't released the rhinestones, they're still circles. If I turn the rhinestone effect off, see, it's still a circle. It's just larger than the one that was there before because I scaled it up. Okay. So now we have this portion of the crown. Okay. And we have this piece right here. Now, if I move this piece out, and let's just see what that looks like. Okay. I am thinking I'm probably going to just get rid of that. And this was this little inside piece that was part of the compound path in this portion of the crown. But the space is so narrow, it's gonna it's not gonna give those SS10 stones enough room to fit. Well, let's see. If we do that, we use the linear fill, we could probably fill that in like that. I'll scale it down. Let's scale it down. Oops. Oh, sorry. Let's just we scaled it down, made the triangle a little bit smaller. I'm just gonna kind of move it like that. And then, okay, I think I like to scale this out and see what that looks like. Okay, I think I like that. And I can come back in and I can manually make some changes in here once I release these rhinestones. So I think I'm okay with that. So I'm not gonna use this piece right here. Um, let's just see something a minute. Nah, I'm just not gonna use that piece. Okay, so here we have it. Let's go in here now. And let's go ahead and let's make the edits to this crown. So I'm going to first group everything together, just because. Before I do that, let me see. Am I happy? I can make that one a little bit wider and I have a little bit more room. Let's see, can we make this one a little wider? I think we can. I don't want to make them too wide though. But I am just trying to kind of fill out that space. Okay, so I made those circles just a little bit larger because we had a little bit more room to work with. I'm zooming in a little bit so you guys can see. Okay, and I can move this down a little bit like that. Okay, so I'm just gonna group everything back together. Or I can make it a compound path, either or, doesn't matter. And now that it's all together, I'm gonna start with the crown and I'm gonna go to the rhinestone panel, okay? So I'm gonna open it up, okay? And when, before we release the rhinestones, when we're in the rhinestone panel, it will tell us exactly how many rhinestones are in each element of the design or in each element of an individual piece. So right now, um, this is saying that we have 200, why do we have 253, 2,523 SS6 stones and 51 SS10 stones? That can't be right. What did we not make SS10s? Oh, we didn't make our offset SS10s, but I think we're okay with that. Okay, so it's a good thing we checked. It's a good thing I checked. Oh, I know why. Because we were looking at the design. I remember now. We were looking at it to see what it would look like if we had it in SS10 rhinestones. That's what it was. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn everything back to tens. Okay, so that tells me I'm gonna have to make some more edits, but not much, not much. Okay, so we're all in SS10, okay? And something is still SS6 in the design. So let's see if we can figure out where that is. What is SS6? 11 stones. Ah, right here. That's 4 stones. And we have one other thing that is showing us SS6 stones. Let's see, let me ungroup this a minute. No, this all says SS10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Hmm. Oh, there might be, you know what it is? Sorry. There are some elements of some things on the screen here. These things, that's it. There we go. Okay. And these were not released and we don't need that. Okay. So we did have some SS6s that the system was picking up, but now that we got rid of all of those things, hmm, now that we got rid of all those things, all of is showing us that the design has 2009 SS10 rhinestones. Okay. But the one thing that I do notice that I think I want to fix is I elongated this part of the hand, and I think I want to make it a little bit shorter. So because I'd already created the offset, I'm going to have to get rid of the offset, okay, so that I can shrink this down. So let's see, I think I just kind of, and I need to try to look at it from a standpoint of where the design kind of, you can see the, that it looks like a fist, right? Because remember, we're using the larger stones, and so we lose some of that detail. But I think you can still make this out that it looks like a fist. So we might be okay with that. Okay, and then that was in the original design, kind of tucked in here with the H and the L. So I'm going to put that back where it was. I think that's okay. And then over here, the other one, we don't need this offset anymore. I'm going to get rid of that. So this one was in here with the Y and the G. Hold on just a second, folks. Hey, Shadena. Got the crystals today. Oh, wonderful. Matter of fact, I got them off the front step, ready to open it. Thank you so much. Oh, sweetheart, you're welcome. You are, hold on one second. Oh, you know what? I'm almost done with something. Can I call you back in about 10 minutes? Okay. All right. Bye. I am so sorry about that, folks. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. But basically what I'm gonna do is, like I said, I'm just trying to find a happy place for this fist. in the design with the SS10 rhinestones. And now that I've kind of done that, I'm going to go back and I'm going to drag this box I'm going to drag a box around the whole thing, and I'm going to create that offset again. And it should remember what I did the last time. So I'm going to go ahead and click apply, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on the edge fill and change the color. And turn off the line style. There we go. All right, there we go, folks. So here is our Black History is Living History SS10 rhinestones. Okay, so well, actually, we're not really done. We're not done, but the only thing left for me to do is to make the edits to the crown. So let me try to come in here real quick and show you how I do that. So we have our crown, and I'm going to go ahead to the rhinestone panel. And from here, we're going to start releasing the rhinestones. Okay, so I'm going to go underneath the rhinestone spacing, and underneath the draw rhinestone freehand tool, we're going to click release rhinestones. Okay, and once I release those rhinestones, okay, there is now a box. Let's see if I turn the panel this off. You can see how it put a box around every single one of those holes. Okay, the holes are spaced at 0.130, okay, which is the standard SS10 rhinestone for in silhouette. And now I can make edits to each one of those rhinestones. So I'm going to just turn this page back black again so you can see the white stones, okay? And I'm just going to manually start, shifting some stones around. Just really kind of, and there's not a lot that I need to do really, because we'd already kind of made some changes to the design itself, but I'm just going to come in here and just going to kind of create a little spacing. I use my arrow keys. Okay, there are some tools that you can use, your alignment tools, but for the sake of this particular video, because it's going rather long, I'm just going to use my arrow keys to make these adjustments. And in another video, I can come back and we can do this some more. Okay. And I'm just going to create a little bit more spacing between these rhinestones, because I'm over here on this side. They're looking a little close. They're probably fine, and it probably will cut okay, but it never hurts to be a little safe than sorry when it comes to our rhinestone flock, because the flock is so expensive. Okay, like I said, I'm just using my arrow keys to make these little manual adjustments to this crown. This one has, let's see, there was only 2 stones over here on this side and 3 stones over there on that side. So I'm just trying to make it trying to see if I can make it symmetrical to some degree, but all right. I think that looks good. That's good enough. I'm gonna get rid of that excess stone. We didn't need that. So now instead of 72 stones, we had 71. And we're gonna just go throughout. We're just gonna go release the rhinestones in the rest of the design. So I'm gonna go here Again, I'm going to release the rhinestones. I'm going to release them here in this star and the is. Living. Okay, and I could have probably made some changes to the spacing, but I think it's easier at this point to come in here, right here in this G. There's a gap right in here. And I think we can fill that gap in with a stone. So since I've released the rhinestones, I just go ahead and I'm going to hold my Alt key and I'm just gonna just duplicate a stone and add it there. And I'm gonna try to clean that little spacing up a little bit. This was an effect to make that look like to make that G look like it was coming down into the Y. I'm gonna go ahead and equal space these stones. And how you equal space is you go to your transform panel. That's this one right here. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th icon from the top over here on the right. Again, it's where your alignment tools are, but we click on that. And down here where it says distribute, we can distribute our stones space vertically, or we can distribute them horizontally. And so seeing how these stones are going in the horizontal direction, we can click that. And if you saw, it automatically put the same amount of space between the top and the bottom. Okay. So this is good when you have stones and you want to make sure that you have equal spacing between those stones. Okay, I'm just making some manual edits right here. They don't necessarily, I'm just trying to create a little space. Let's see here. This is a little close. So I'm just gonna, again, shift these stones in a little. This one over like that. C, again, just eyeing this very quickly. Go ahead and release the stones in the word history here at the bottom. And I can see here, like I said, I'm gonna just shift these over just a little bit, just to give them a little room for cutting purposes. I'll move that one back over and up. Okay, up right here. We've got a little bit of overlapping going on right there. So we're just gonna create a little bit of space. Like I said, just to give those stones a little bit more room. And I'm just eyeing the design. Okay. So we've got all of that. This star is a little, we can, we can get, let's see. I think we can get a stone in there. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. We just have to kind of look at it and see. But because we've got some extra space over here, we can actually fit another stone in there to kind of make that look a little bit more star shaped. Okay, I think that looks a little bit better. Let's see, and over here, go ahead and release. We can make the same edits over here. We can, there's a stone right in there. Just go ahead and zoom that in a little bit more for you right here where we did our offset, but so that we can create some space to then add a stone and put that right in there like that. Again, like I said, I'm just being probably a little anal here. Okay. All right. And this is our fist. Okay. So let's just see in the fist before I release the rhinestones, if I change the amount of spacing in between the stones, if I can kind of clean that up a little bit. But if not, no. So going out a little wider, mm, a little closer. Up. 0 to 0. That's 0 to 0 to 5. To 5 made that spacing a little bit wider. So I'm just gonna go ahead and release the rhinestones because I think I see where I want to add a stone. I think we need to add a stone, maybe possibly here. And maybe possibly here. And I'm gonna see if I can get another stone to fit in there. And then I'm gonna kind of zoom out um, just to see if that's giving me the look that I want. So here's our picture. If it helps to kind of bring it over here. So what we're trying to create is this thumb. Okay, we have this thumb here, and then we have these parts of the right here. Okay. Uh, hmm. Because of the stone size, like I said, we might be about as good as we can get. Um, I can try. I can try, let's see, shifting maybe this little stone over like this and maybe this one over here, just to be able to see if we can fit a stone right in there. Okay, and then we might putting that like this, like that. And if this doesn't look right, this is the part of the thumb with that kind of curved piece a little bit. Let's just zoom out and see if that looks, and I think if we got rid of that little stone, does that make that look? Maybe if we did, I think what that was that kind of was, I think we need to, so that, and sometimes in editing, you can make a design worse than what it was. So the more I play around with that, the more that is just starting to lose itself. So I'm just going to go back to before I made the edits because I think that looked better in my opinion. So I'm just going to leave that like that. Um, like I said, because we have the outline around it, you can tell that it is a fist. I mean, I can see it. I can see that it looks like a fist, and I think most people would be able to see it once we actually stone it. So I'm not gonna make too many more changes to it. I'm gonna go over here and release the rhinestones on the other side for that particular fist. Okay, and I may just like I said, I may just leave that the way it is as well. Okay, so now we're done. We've released all of the rhinestones in the design. And I'm going to show you how you group them all by color. Um, if you wanted to create this as a layered template for cutting. Um, so we go to panels. We're here at the top of the toolbar. Okay, we're going to click on panels. And I'm going to click select by color. And I'm going to go to the by fill because I have filled in all of the holes with a color. Okay, so let's start with this dark gray. Okay, and it's hard to see it because I have the page, well, I'm gonna turn this panel back white so you can see it. Not white, but maybe gray. Okay, so you can see when I'm in the select panel by color, it put a box around all of the black or all of the gray that I had selected. Go back to the Okay, so from there, I'm going to put my mouse on anywhere on the screen. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click group. Okay, the other way that you could do that is you could come up here to object, which is at the very top of the toolbar, at the top of your screen. Okay, and if they were not grouped together, then the group would be highlighted. But because I've already grouped them, the only option would be for me to ungroup them. But that's where you can also find where you group your stones, okay, or your colors. So we did that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select the green, and I'll zoom out a little bit. So I'll select the green. You put a box around all of the green. I'm going to right click and group. Okay, I'm going to do the next color, which is this orangey color. Right click group. The white, right click and do group. And then we have the red and group. And last but not least, we have yellow. Okay, so I've grouped all of these things together. Okay, um, and you can tell because now each of them are their own separate layers. So we have our white layer, the black, the red, the green, and the orange. Okay, along with the offset in the back. Okay, I'm going to put all of those things back together. And for the simplicity of cutting this template, okay, now this template is going to have multiple layers. So here's our offset. Okay, so our offset needs to be a layer all by itself. Okay, so we're going to have that to be a layer, and it's going to be the first layer that we cut. Okay, because it's going to be the thing that helps us to lay in all of the other pieces. Okay, and ultimately, or ideally, you would want to have each layer be its own color, but that would be a lot of flock and a lot of layering. So I'm going to look at this and I'm going to see which of these things I can group together to and still keep it such that it makes it easy to brush in. So I'm thinking if we click the white, and if I'm holding my shift key, we could click history and the other history. We could group those two things together. Okay, and then that would be a layer up. Yeah, we could click. Well, maybe what I would do is this would be a 3-layer template for now. And I would do all of the white, and the white would be a layer by itself. So we have the black, we have the white layer, and then we could make all of this one layer, and you could use painter's tape to block off the areas that you don't necessarily want to brush stones in, or you can, use your brush and you can just work uh, the small sections of this. And if you wanted to make this all different colors, you could do it that way. But then you would have this and you could group all of that together. Okay. And so this would be your 3 cut layers for your rhinestone design. Okay. I will come back in a different tutorial and we'll show you about some more layering techniques. But we are, I think, maybe about 1 hour and 45 minutes or so, maybe a little longer for this particular tutorial. So I think you pretty much got it. If you have questions, feel free to, again, drop them in the on the comment section. Like I said earlier, I do go through and I read all of those comments and I try to answer them. I hope this was beneficial. I hope you learned something, and I hope you'll make this design. Thank you so much for watching. Please stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for future content.